So, what is Guild Wars 2? Hi folks, I am Divok from Project 65 and welcome to our introduction to Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, or MMORPG. You enter a vast world inhabited by other real players and NPCs, or non-player characters, and, well, you fulfill a role. In Guild Wars 2, that role is distinguished mostly by your class, but parts can be determined by your race, what game mode you partake in, or even things like your crafting professions or masteries over certain skills and mounts. So, what can you play as? Well, character creation starts with your race. This doesn't decide too much anymore as the balance patches since release have focused on making the race you pick more cosmetic than anything else, but it will change your starting missions up to around level 30 or so. The current races are humans, your classic, medieval, honour-bound, squishy humans, at least for the most part, but our race is a fickle one, and many turn down darker paths. Next up we have the Norn. Cosmetically they are basically large humans, but they are effectively a Nordic people who have the ability to shapeshift into their spirit animals. They're wary of their old god spirits, and you should be wary of them. Moving away from what you might know in other games, we have the Azura. They might seem cute to some, but they hate to be patronised, as they are the most intelligent race of Tyria, the continent of Guild Wars, by a long stretch. These mini-geniuses, or is it genii, are the creators of all manners of mechanical and magical in the realm. Moving on to my second favourite bunch, the Char. These feline giants are masters of war. Once in an eternal conflict with the humans, they are now based in Ascalon, the centre of the old human world. The two factions are now at peace, but with larger threats facing the world, these beasts might be the only thing that stands between the evil forces at work and the end of Tyria. Finally, my favourite race, the Sylvari. These plant people are newly born to Tyria from a particular magical tree. They are inquisitive, and with each new generation added to their collective and shared intellect, they're becoming smarter too. So you've decided to join the Sylvari Master Race. Congratulations. But as I said, that is purely cosmetic. The real game begins as you pick your class. In Guild Wars 2, classes are split into heavy, medium and light, with the easiest to learn of each being on the leftmost side of this menu. Starting with the heavy classes, we have the Warrior. With access to more weapons than any other class, the Warrior is truly versatile, although you will typically find them out in the front lines, taking their enemies head on with their great survivability while dishing out heavy damage of their own. Next we have the Guardians, just as tanky as their warrior counterparts, but typically more focused around protecting allies than dealing damage of their own. These are the stable front line of any offensive and a must-have for any army. Finally we have the Revenant. This class isn't accessible with the free base game, but if you decide to buy into Guild Wars, it's well worth it. The Revenants have a deep connection to the Mists, somewhat like the afterlife of Tyria, and they channel the powers of ancient heroes and villains to devastate or protect. The choice is yours. The medium classes prefer a little more range when compared to the heavies, and that couldn't be more true of our first and easiest to learn of them, the Ranger. The Ranger is your bow-wielding, pet-having survivalist expert. With the power of nature on their side, they wreak havoc from afar. The Thief is next, and these are your rogues. With a focus on stealth and keeping out of the enemy's reach, the Thief delivers deadly blows before the prey even knows they are in danger. Finally, for the medium classes is the Engineer. These are the inventors of Tyria, bringing with them crazy weapons, building turrets to do their work for them, and with access to more skills than any other class, the Engineer is a complex weapon of mass destruction. Finally, we move on to our light classes. These are typically more mobile than the other two, but as a result, they are a little squishier. The exception to the rule being the first and easiest to learn, the Necromancer. Harnessing the powers of death and decay, the Necromancer spreads plagues, summons minions of the dead, and steals life force to become their own health shield. Elementalists are next, and as you might expect, they wield the power of the elements. Specifically, the high damage fire, supporting water, bursting air, and stable earth. They have access to everything they could ever need. Our final class is the Mesmer, and my most played class too. These are masters of deception and deceit. They summon illusions of themselves to distract, and then turn them into weapons, shattering them for massive damage. Of course, you have decided that if you were to play Guild Wars 2, you would be a Sylvari Mesmer, because naturally they are the best options. But you've played or seen other MMORPGs before, and they haven't really taken your fancy, so why should you try this one? The obvious comparison for Guild Wars 2 might seem like it's World of Warcraft, but they have developed the core principles of what it means to be an MMORPG, to the point where it might feel like you have the same story-like experience, but it is in a much nicer ribbon-tied box. First and foremost, you can play Guild Wars 2 for free. No subscription, no initial fee, and there is no paying to win either. The in-game store is all for cosmetics. Now, without buying the expansion, you will have access to fewer specializations and masteries, the former being powerful new ways to play your class, and the latter being things such as mounts and gliding. But if you want to try the game, you certainly don't need those things. So what are you waiting for? Pause this video, go and download Guild Wars 2 for free, then come back and watch while it's downloading. Okay, so other than the price model, which is insane, why is Guild Wars 2 different? Well, the way you play through the game has changed drastically. Most skills are attached to your weapon, rather than a huge list of spells forcing you to pick from what you think works. This game is well balanced, and synergy is easy to find, as at least a few of your skills will work together because they come together. You also have access to 5 utility skill slots, which are class-specific slots that you can fill from a list of skills. But even these come in synergetic categories to make it easier for you. One of these utility slots is even a heal. This means every class has access to one, meaning your days of waiting for a healer, and for even that matter a tank or DPS, to arrive before you can do stories is over. You are all 3 parts of the holy trinity of an RPG, at least until you get to the late game content. Finally, the last big change is the heart system. No more fetch quests, no more shopping lists. You arrive in a region of the map and are given any number of activities to do there and then as your quest. And some of these can get pretty interesting. So that is all well and good, but what do you even do in Guild Wars 2? Well, the first game mode you will see is PvE, or Player versus Environment. This covers a whole load of different modes within it, from the story to crazy late game raids. But it is just one of the 3 overarching game modes in Guild Wars 2. The first PvE you'll experience will be a story instance. Your story is a branching network of decisions you make, wrapped up in little cutscenes, voice lines, and missions. These are designed to be played alone, but you can take friends in with you if you please, and if they have the same story as you, you can both get the rewards and progression for it. After your initial story, you'll be flung out into the world maps themselves. These are full of the aforementioned heart quests, beautiful vistas, points of interest, teleport locations, and most importantly, dynamic events. The maps of Guild Wars 2 are always alive, with rotating events moving around the map and changing course depending on how successful the entire player base are at defeating them. Push back center invaders who are pillaging a farm, then regroup with the local army to reclaim territory from them, unlocking new merchants and a new teleport location or waypoint for yourself, until they try to retake it themselves. And that is just a relatively simple example from one of the very first maps. When Guild Wars 2 was released, its endgame PvE content were the dungeons. These story-based 5-player instances are a bit trickier than regular story modes, but are by no means difficult. This caused a number of people to stop playing as there simply wasn't a real grind for top level gear either. Since then, we've had Fractals and Rage introduced, each with their own gear grind and great late game content. Fractals are similar to dungeons. Gather 5 players and take on a small story instance of bosses and traps. But these Fractals are exceedingly difficult if you're not coordinated at the high levels. And just to get there, you need to grind out agony resistance in your ascended armour, otherwise the map itself will end up killing you. Raids came out recently, and these are 10-man PvE endgame boss wings to tackle. These require a lot more coordination, but the rewards are certainly worth it. Finally, there is the living story. ArenaNet, the team behind Guild Wars 2, doesn't wait for expansions to release new maps and new stories. Between expansions, there are living world episodes, bringing new maps, items and stories every few weeks. If you aren't interested in fighting the computer though, and you would much prefer to show off your skill against other players, then the other 2 game modes are for you. PvP, or Player vs Player, exists in a lobby called Heart of the Mists. Travel here at any level with any items, as all stats are normalised to provide the most balanced PvP experience possible. Jump into 5v5 conquest maps, where you fight over control points to reach a point total of 500 before the other team does. To capture a control point, simply stand in the ring without an enemy also stood in it, until the bar fills up. Once it is yours, the node will generate your team 1 point per tick. Each map has 3 of these nodes, so the 5 of you need to split between 2 or 3 of them, depending on your strategy. Don't worry though, if you're simply here to kill people, that's fine too. For each enemy you finish off, your team is awarded 5 points. So hop onto a mobile class, bounce between the nodes, and leave destruction and plus 5 points in your wake. Of course, if that was all there was to PvP, it might eventually get a little boring. But to keep things interesting, there are a number of maps, each with its own mechanic to influence how points are attained. The most commonly played maps are Foefire, Forest, and Temple. In Foefire, each team has a base with a lord hidden away inside. If you commit to leaving the nodes and instead break into the enemy base and kill the lord, your team gets 150 points. However, that is a risky play as the enemy will likely have all 3 of the nodes during that time, and they will be warned of you breaking in. On the Forest map, there are 2 NPC bosses that spawn at intervals and are worth 25 points each. The last hit on the boss awards the points though, so take care if enemies are around. Finally, Temple has 2 buffs that spawn. One doubles the points you get from nodes, and the other instantly takes all 3 nodes for your team. So be sure to fight the enemy for the buffs and the nodes throughout the Temple game. There are more maps than this, but I just wanted to give you a little flavour of the crazy things you can get up to in PvP. And that leaves us with World vs World. This mode takes the leaderboard of all the game's servers and pits 3 similarly ranked servers against one another in a persistent battlefield. Take up arms alongside your fellow server folk to take important supply centres, strategic sentry locations, or structures such as towers, keeps, or even a castle. The server is awarded points for all the objectives you control each time the tick passes, and you're awarded points for each enemy player your server kills. This battle is split over 4 maps, each server having a home borderland, which is typically easiest for them to defend. And finally, the Eternal Battlegrounds, known as EB, where all 3 servers are split into the 3 corners of a relatively equal map, with Stonemist Castle, affectionately known as Big Castle, in the centre. That castle has a huge strategic bonus to it, as it allows for faster movement and more stealthy travel across the map. Not to mention it offers more points than any other objective. World vs World is a crazy game mode full of huge real player armies, fighting against one another. But for me, the main attraction is the community of it. I've been a part of a number of servers now, across North America and Europe, and in every single one there is a unique community of hundreds of players, either individuals or in guilds, that group together on Discord and TeamSpeak servers to chill, but mostly to fight. Join up with a commander for an evening of looting your enemy's corpses. Yes, you get loot for killing people in World vs World. In fact, I've had my single most expensive item in Guild Wars 2 from killing an enemy German who was assaulting one of our keeps. Of note, there are also some amazing improvements coming to World vs World very soon, where you can build guild alliances instead of servers to fight with. So if you've played before or want to join in, now is the best time to get started. I briefly mentioned it before, but the best way to play World vs World, and Guild Wars 2 as a whole, is in a guild. Guilds are the clan system for Guild Wars 2. Anyone can make a guild, it just costs you 1 gold, which is exceedingly easy to attain. But that 1 gold can last a lifetime. I've taken a number of breaks from Guild Wars 2 to cover different games in the past, but the reason I keep coming back is my 7+ year-old guild / family, the Chosen Alliance. I've been with them for what must be closing into 4 to 5 years now, and while people have come and gone, the old core still remains. It's your classic idyllic group of gaming buddies, the type that everyone wants to find, but the thing is, in Guild Wars, they're incredibly easy to find. While I adore the Chosen Alliance,
Get Divok.
they are the rule rather than the exception. This game is full of brilliant communities that play each of the different game modes, speak different languages, and play all across the world. I guarantee there is a guild for everyone here. Just play what excites you the most, and you will find them. I personally found the Chosen Alliance after joining a particularly hilarious commander in World vs World. I liked his style, and there seemed to be a whole bunch of nice people from the same guild following him, so I asked to join, and they haven't been able to fully get rid of me since. Guild Wars 2 is fantastic for a bunch of reasons, but for me, the community here is the key. So what will Project 65 be doing with Guild Wars 2? Well, naturally as a World vs World player, I will have a whole lot of potential content there. However, I want to avoid any of my usual guides here until we get the new Alliance features, just in case everything changes. However, if we get any news at all, you can guarantee I'll cover it. In the meantime, I might share some particularly funny or epic moments from World vs World. Outside of that, I know many of you will not have played the game, and many people from the game that follow me are from World vs World, so you'll all be relatively new to PvE. I absolutely love the fractal system, so I might focus on some early entry fractal guides, so you new players can ease yourself into the end game, and my fellow comrades can finally explore fractals. If there is anything else you want me to cover in the game, just let me know. Guild Wars 2 just edges out Dota 2 as my most played game ever. With a decent amount of experience in PvE, and crazy hours invested into World vs World and PvP, I can cover anything you want to. So that was Guild Wars 2. If you enjoyed the content, please do like and subscribe as it really helps the channel out. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter @div0k so you never miss another video. I have been Divok of Project 65, and I will see you next time.